Okay, here is their issue. Fork, I got a Hovsco HovAlpha, step through alpha. And the problem is this little adjuster knob snapped off right where it snaps off. It's not the one over here that you can adjust. Trying to get it on camera. Where you can adjust the play in the fork. I have tried this combined with this, and this right here will not budge. I have bought a special tool for it that's made specifically to take those out, and it will not come out. I don't know if they pressed them in, if they welded them in, glued them in, or whatever, but as you can see, I have pretty much shredded that thing trying to get it out, and it will not come. Luckily, I was under warranty, and Hovsco sent me this, a brand new fork. So they asked me, I don't know if their technicians don't know how to do it themselves, but they asked me if I would make a video on how to change out this fork. So I will, with a bunch of cussing, and I have to show them, I guess, on how to do it. So here we go. To get some working room, we were going to have to remove the basket, and that will be the first thing. We will use this 4mm Allen wrench. I do believe one comes with the kit that Hovsco provides, and we will use that to remove the basket. So that is our first step. By the way, those of you that don't have that front basket, I've used it for lots of stuff. It may look a little corny, but at my age, I don't give a damn. Excuse the rain. It started to rain outside. But what I do, I've taken the basket off. It's held in with 4 nuts and 4 washers. And that will be identified by using the box that the fork came in. And I will label each thing on the box and put the screws there. Okay, now that we got the basket off, the very next step will be to take everything off this fork. That's going to include the disc brake assembly. You see it there. And also where it connects there to keep it out of the tire and off the road. And then we're going to go up here and remove the headset, aka handlebars, etc. Okay, the first thing we're going to remove is the fender. If you have a fender, then this is what it will consist of. If I go down here real close, you'll notice, let me get some light here, that is a common number 2 Phillips screwdriver, which looks like this, obviously. Okay, number 2. And up here, up the fender, it will be attached to the fork using the 4mm Allen wrench that we used before. Once we take those 3 screws out, we can remove the fender. I'll save you the pain of having to watch me do it because it's quite plain. Okay, the fender has been removed. I have the screws here. And I wanted to point out something in case you look at that and wonder what's going on. what it is sometimes when you're working in a workshop, you can bump stuff and stuff will get knocked around. So what I do, I have 3 screws here. I'm going to take a knife and I'm going to punch a hole, 3 holes. In the cardboard right there. Then I can take a screw with its washer and everything, and I'll stick it down into the hole. And what that does is if that box gets jostled or somebody comes in and bumps into it, or I mean anything can happen. If you're working outside, you can get a big, looks like my thing's a little more, I'll make another one. This is the fork box, by the way. I won't be needing it afterwards. I'll be recycling it. And you put those in there like that, and then I take a magic marker. And I circle it. The right finger. Like that. And that completes the removal of the fender. Okay, the next thing we're going to take off is this brake caliper. Now what you have to watch out about this brake caliper is it connects here to the fork and down here to the fork. And it also has this bracket right here, which is not part of the fork. And you'll notice that there's a washer there. You want to try your best to keep that intact. The screws are going to be not a 4mm, but a 5mm. You want to make sure you have one of those before you start this. Also, as you follow the cable up, it's also attached to the fork right here. You can see that's an Allen wrench, and that Allen wrench will be a 3mm. So you want to make sure you have that before you start messing with everything. I'll go ahead and take everything off. And I want to let you know that as I take this off, make sure that you do not press that brake lever at all. Either one. Right now I don't remember which is which. But don't press either one of them. If you got somebody that comes around you and likes to squeeze on things, make sure they don't do it. And then I'll show you what to do after that. Try your best to keep everything on this intact, and I'll show you a way to do it. Another thing you may want to consider when you take this off is you need some sort of fastener. These things will be going around part of the bike, so as I remove this caliper, I will also be tying it off somewhere out of the way, probably over here on my bike lock. It's just twist ties. You can use zip ties, you can use strips of cloth, you can use masking tape, anything that will just hold this whole cable out of the way so you can work on the bike and change what you need to change. So let's get to it. One of the first things that I do is I'm going to go behind this with my fastener, pipe cleaner, whatever, and I'm going to twist it to this so it will stay as part of the body. What that will do is hold that washer in, hold this bracket in, it'll hold it all in, so when I move it up out of the way, it'll all be one piece, and I don't have to worry about which way I'm going to put it back, because if you notice, you probably can't notice here, but if you go look at your bike, this bracket is different shape. It's not symmetrical. It's kind of bigger up here at the top than it is at the bottom. That's because this thing bulges in a certain spot. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a pipe cleaner across that and twist it tight. So when I take this off, remove those 2 screws, then everything will be bound and I won't have screws and brackets and everything going all over the workshop. Okay, if you've noticed, I've got mine tied up with the pipe cleaner. I did it around this bracket to hold that bracket up against the caliper. This is the caliper, in case y'all are wondering. And I also tied it down here. I had a long pipe cleaner so I could do it. Now you have to make sure when you do this, you don't go behind the rotor. You need to be on this side of the rotor, because this is the side that the bracket is on and most of the caliper's on. Now something I just realized as I was taking this off, and I might want to alert Hovsco on this so they can do some quality control, but I noticed my rotor was loose. I had to replace the pads on these some times ago, and I didn't know why they had to be so early. And I know now it's because this rotor was loose. These screws here that attach this rotor to the wheel obviously were not torqued down to spec. So when I put these in later on, I'm going to use a little bit of Loctite or similar thread locker to keep them in place. Not a permanent thread locker, but what they call blue thread locker. So that's kind of good that I'm replacing this fork, so I can find out this should have never been like this. You can see down on that screw where it was coming loose. This is also encouraging me and reminding me that I need to understand that I need to probably look my bike over a little bit before I take it out, because if this failed in some way, I don't know how it could like fail. It's just going to be loose until the screw comes off and everything just goes honky. But until then, this is what's going to be the next step after this, and of course after tying that out of the way. But I've got these tied up, and I'm going to take the caliper screws off here. Again, these are 5mm, and also of course the 3mm screw here holding this in. Why didn't they use stainless for that? Anyway, that's our next step. I'll save you the boredom of showing you me doing it. Okay, just so you'll know, these 5mm bolts, when they come out, they're different lengths. As you can see by the caliper, the bottom is a lot thicker than the top, which is skinnier. Obviously, the short bolt goes in the skinny side, and the other one goes in that side. What I'm going to do now, I could leave these bolts in and just like tape the ends, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a pipe cleaner through the holes. That way they'll stay plain. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. Okay, you can see what I've done. You see I run the pipe cleaner through where the bolt goes on the top and the bottom. And what that does is it keeps this bracket and the caliper and the washer in the middle between them. It keeps them all intact. So you don't have to worry about lining up too much and stuff, because eventually you're going to put it right back on the caliper on the new fork that you've installed. All right, our next step, of course, as I mentioned before, we're going to use that 3mm Allen wrench to take out that nut right there, because this is also attached to the fork. And then we're going to get this whole assembly, brake assembly, out of the way so we can start working on the next part of the fork removal. Okay, as you can see, the caliper has been removed from the fork, and it's also the little holder that keeps the cable at bay. And I've gone over here and I've just used pipe cleaners to hold the brake caliper to my seat post to keep it out of the way. These are what I'm talking about right here. You'll see that those orange things, those are the brake pads. There's plenty of videos on YouTube on how to change those. It's pretty easy to understand. But you want to make sure on this side, I'll look on this side if I can twist it around for you. This is the part that goes, the caliper goes in, that little bit. Now that's hydraulic on these, which is a good type of brake. If you squeeze, any of these brake levers here, you're going to end up squeezing those together. And you don't want to squeeze them together, because if you do, you'll have to get a screwdriver or something in there to get them back apart, and that could damage the yeah, let's see if I can get this thing going. That could damage the brake pad, and you don't want to do that. It'll make them wear out quicker. Okay, right here I'm just putting these back. I've cut some holes. I'm just putting the bolts in there, shoving them in there. This right here is the little holder that holds that brake cable in. I went ahead and kept the screw in it. I'm going to also push that down into its little hole, make it fasten, and then I'm going to draw a circle around it. And then I'm going to label this caliper and this brake cable. Whoops. I'll edit that out. Okay, just to clarify, this loose rotor, which I'll be tightening, is actually fastened to the wheel rim. It's not attached to the forks. So when I take this tire off later, I will use a torque wrench and cinch these back down to a proper torque. The next step that we're going to do, we're going to take off the headset, aka handlebars, etc. And we're going to free up, basically the idea is to free up the tube right here where this fork goes up into there. That's our next step. Just a little information here, but those of you that have a HovAlpha step through, you'll notice that this is extended here. This is something I did aftermarket. The reason is I wanted a mountain bike, but I also wanted a bike that could keep me more upright when I wanted to be upright. And I'm also a tall person. So I had this extension put in. Well, actually, I did it myself. And it's a combination of 4mm screws up here and 5mm screws up here. And I'll be taking those off next. It also, you notice there's spacer rings in here. This lifts the headset, aka handlebar part, up there. So your mileage may vary as far as what you need to do. It may just be you need to take these off or something like that. I don't exactly remember all I did here, so you'll have to forgive me for that. But that's the next step, is taking this whole array off. Okay, I need to make a correction here. To confess, I learn things as I go along. This is the first time I've ever done this, but I am highly intuitive and I can figure stuff out. So this right here inside, the guts inside this tube here, is actually the headset. It's not this stuff up here. It's not the handlebars or anything up like that. We also have the stem. The stem is coming up from the fork. Okay, this new fork that I'm going to put in. This part here, this is the stem. But right now, it's connected to all this stuff up here. Handlebars and everything. I'm going to take that off, and then we'll go from there. This is a 5mm, by the way. In order to get everything off, you got to take this little holding cap. That's the only way to do it. Just so you'll know, this screws down into what's called a star nut. There's probably another name for it. But I'm taking it off, taking it out. You'll find out what this is later. Okay, this could take a while. I'll save you the pain. Okay, just to show you, I take this out. It's that 5mm again, or 4mm. No, 5mm. This comes out, and you notice how long the bolt goes. This bolt will go into what's called a star nut, which will fit later down inside this hole. It's kind of a weird arrangement, but that's how they designed. So that'll be the thing, and then we're going to take all this stuff off here next. Okay, I've taken off the handlebars part. As you can see, this part is so wide. That's what this is. These little spacer rings on what I did on aftermarket install, I will take off. As you can see, they're individual, and I'll put them over here for now. And I'll also take off my extender. It's my extender right here. I'll take it off and put it over here. And then I got 3 more rings, spacer rings. I'll go ahead and take them off. And then I've got this part. It may or may not be a hard part of what they call the headset. I don't know or don't care at this point. And I'll put it back on this cardboard board just like the rest to keep track of everything. Okay, here we are. This is what's going on. I've taken everything off. I have just the tube of the fork that's left, and hope you don't get dizzy. I took all this stuff off. I put it in sort of like a card arrangement. I don't know what the heck this is, but they probably need to work on that. And then next on top goes all that. This may be part of the headset. I don't really know. Here's my extender rings, and then the top part that I took off, and I went ahead and stuck the rings in through there to sort of keep them stable. I really don't want to cut a bunch of slots and spend all that time putting them in there like this, so I did it so I can get it all back on in one piece. So next is we're going to take the fork out. Okay, I'll light a bit. This fork right here that we're going to take out, I'm going to go ahead and just take the tire off with the Hovsco. It's pretty point forward. You just remove this quick release right here, down here. You pull it out, and your forks unscrewed a bit, and your forks come out. At that point, I will probably go ahead and take a torque wrench and torque these down to the appropriate specs so we don't have a problem with brake padding anymore. But my next step, I'm going to take this fork out, and I am going to have to build some sort of support to hold this part of the bike in place so the fork can just drop on its own into the air. Okay, just to inform everyone, but as soon as I put this up on a stand, after I took the wheel off, this fork dropped right out. I hear that some manufacturers make it where you have to have a special tool, but this did not happen. This is what I referred to earlier as a star nut. Basically, this goes down into that tube at a certain depth, and that depth will be what the screw goes into right there, that long one. So my next step is to install the new fork, not this trashed out one, and we'll go from there. Also, in case you didn't see, I took off everything else over here and just tied the handlebars and everything to my seat post to get it out of the way. We'll put it back when we get the fork in. Okay, as I mentioned or may not have mentioned, as you can see down here, this goes all the way through. Alright, and this is the new fork, and the old fork has what they call a star nut. There's other names for it, and the way it works is it's pressed down in there to a certain depth, and then if it tries to come back out, it bites into the metal. You can look real close, you can see where it's biting into the metal. Okay, now I have an option of, I can possibly take that out. If I had a long threaded rod, I could punch that through this whole length of this tube and get it out. I could probably use, I've heard people using long pieces of PVC or other things, but what I decided to go ahead and do is just buy a kit that actually puts the star nut in, and it actually has included star nuts. Okay, and this will shove it down in there just like so to a predetermined depth, and then that will be what this part over here, this long right here, will go into. And that holds the fork up against and fastens it to the bike. So that's my next step. I think you have noticed that I used a support to support the bike, because once you remove the tire and everything, there's no support for the front. So in my case, I just used what's available, which is just a dolly, just a regular hand dolly. I put a little piece of material here, cloth, to protect everything, and when I took the wheel, this thing came right out. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, as I was deciding about putting this fork back in, I noticed that this part right here did not have this extra ring, and it's fastened on tight, so it's very, very tight. So wish me luck, but I need to take this all the way up off this stem and put it on this one, because I believe that this is part of the headset. So wish me luck. Okay, just so you know, I managed to get that off of there, and I'm going to put it onto here. I have noticed this is a tight fit down on this part, but the rest, once I got it loose, it went right up, and all I used was a little screwdriver. I was really careful. Now the top part of that may be a bearing race. I don't know. If it is a bearing race, I made sure not to touch it. At the same time, I wanted to make sure that it's lubricated. I wanted to lubricate everything. I used this white lithium grease. This white lithium grease is good for all sorts of stuff. It's multi-purpose, and it's versatile. It's medium viscosity, and it penetrates, but then it guards against moisture and everything else. So all you purists out there, you might have a different idea of what to do, but that's what I've sprayed on this, and I'm going to put it right back on there on the new piece so I don't forget. If you notice, it doesn't go all the way down. This is what I was talking about. It gets a little wide down there, and I have to knock it down that little extra bit. That's fine. I ain't worried about that. Everything that I put back on is going to have this stuff. My screws, everything. Just to make sure that it doesn't rust. And I can take it apart in the future if I need to. Just to clarify, to knock that down a little bit, I'm just going to use a piece of wood and a hammer. You don't want to use anything decent. In case this is a bearing race, I don't want to mess with it. I'm going to make sure it's lubed. And I'm also going to lube this whole stem because it goes inside this part of the bike right here. Okay? It will protect this stem. I noticed with the old stem too, I noticed that there's a point here. There was a whole lot of wear right here. You can see it's all gouged and everything. I don't know what caused that. If anybody has a comment or anything, I'd appreciate it. But the rest of the fork looks nice, and I might reiterate that except for this broken adjuster over here, right here, I tried to get off with everything, just wouldn't come off. The bike was working perfect, so I'll just leave it at that. Okay, as you can see, I've got it all seated back down. All I used was just a mallet like this. It's got duct tape on it. What do you expect? It's from China. And then I've got just used a little piece of bamboo that my relatives from Asia sent me. And I just put it on there like that and just knocked it around until it's seated. That's all I did. The next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the star bit in, but I probably won't do that until I get the tire back on, the wheel back on, and when I do the wheel, of course, like I said, I've got to tighten these right here. I've got to take care of that. So I'm going to look up the torque specs on the Hovsco manual and determine how tight they're going to be, and then I'll just tighten them down. I don't want to bore you with showing you how it's done because you're intelligent. I'm not going to insult it. So that's my next step. Okay, I could swear that they had the specs listed in the manual, but I couldn't find my physical manual. So most sites recommend that these be installed at 5 Newton meters with the torque wrench, which I will be doing. If you don't have it, just make it tight. Make sure you tighten across from each other, just like you would a spare tire. Just across from each other. That way it torques down evenly and gets it done. I also noticed on the manual that I had that these were actually, I don't know if this is a design intention or whatever, but according to the manual, the pictures in the manual, this is actually on backwards. So I'm going to take this off, flip it around, see what's going on, and tighten these down to 5 Newton meters. Okay, I've slipped the new fork back up inside everything. And I've also just put on these pieces here. And the next thing I need to do is put in the star nut. Now, you can Google on YouTube how to use your old star nut. You can use because you notice how it's tilted like this. You could put a piece of wood down your old fork, pound this slowly out like that till it comes out the end, and you can reuse the star nut. Okay. Also, some people have said, in fact, the same guy, he will use. As you can see, I've got my little array here. Some people will just go ahead and screw this into the star nut like that. Like that. Well, let me do it off camera here a little bit. Okay, they'll do it like that. and then they'll put it in here, and they'll pound it down with a mallet or something like that. You don't want to damage the metal. The thing with that is you can get like crooked or whatever, and it can make it hard to get the thing in. So what I do instead, or what I will do, is I use a star nut kit. It comes with, I've already got a star nut typed on there, but it will keep it true. So as I go in here and I put it down on there, it's going to knock that star nut down and make it flush. And to do that, we'll go over to the old fork. And you'll notice that the star nut is not too far down in there. Maybe that far. I've measured with my finger. It's called a finger measurement. So I'm going to pop that star nut down in there about that deep. And I'll be good to go. So again, this is one of those things that it's best to look at the pros do it. You'll have the options of doing it the way you want. But I bought the tool that is specifically made to put these in, and it'll put it in straight. And I know I don't have to measure it. So when I put the rest of all my stuff in there, this stuff right here, everything will be good, and I won't run out of threads. Okay, this is a star nut installation tool. I'm going to turn that thing around so you don't see it, because they're not paying me. And I whack down on it. Okay, now what that does, take this off, unscrew this. Looks like this little bolt got stuck in there too. That'll knock that star nut down in there straight. Okay, now if you look at the other videos on YouTube, you can find out, you know, other ways to do it. You don't need all these fancy tools. Like I said, over here, you get over here. This is how far I want it down. It's not all that far down. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and match it with this one. And this one's just a little bit further down. But this bolt right here, forget the other star nut on it. This bolt right here has a lot of threads on it, so it'll definitely fit the headset or the handlebar set or whatever. So that's my next step. Got my star bolt installed, and next is to put all this cool stuff back on, and that'll include this little stack right here, the stuff I had, all that stuff right there. Okay, now I put a little lithium grease on this stuff, just because I believe in having things well lubed. So I'll get back with you. I'm gonna put back this part here. In fact, I can just put it on there now for you. This is my extender. It's something I did. And then I'll put my handlebars back on top of that. And we'll be set. Everything will be cool. Why is this not focusing? Alright, there we go. So I'll put the handlebars on next. Remember I had them tied over there? They go back on next. Okay, I've got everything back on. Got my head bolt put in. Get the head bolt put in, tightened down. I've got all my spacers and everything put back in. Now all I need to do is just return that brake caliper. back to its install point right there. And that'll be it. I'll save you the drama and the video filler. You kind of know where it's going to go from here. It's going to work perfectly after this. If not, I will make another video.